When rockets from Gaza rained from the sky above Israel, the Indian people were outraged, and they took to social media to show their overwhelming support for Israelis. But the Indian government has been slow to reflect their sentiments. Instead, it is still following an outdated policy on the Israel-Palestine issue. And this is a problem. Hi, and welcome to our channel TFI English, the national political analysis arm of the TFI Media Group. I am your host Shubhangi Sharma, and in this video, I shall discuss with you how India's stand on Palestine is outdated and why it leaves no reason for Israel to thank India. Let's begin. Since the 10th of May, Palestinian terror organization Hamas, backed by Iran and pariah Gulf states, has fired over 3,150 rockets into Israeli territory, including capital Tel Aviv, targeting innocent civilians. This after a legal dispute in Israel's Sheikh al-Jarrah colony was blown out of proportion by Islamists into some sort of ethnic cleansing. Almost immediately, Hamas began an offensive against Israel, and the Jewish nation continues to respond with all its might. Any nation whose civilians are attacked by terrorists with rockets and projectiles for no fault of theirs would do the same. India too, if push came to shove, would do the same. However, India's stand on the current conflict between Israel and Hamas has been appalling. Many are arguing that foreign policy and diplomatic statements cannot be guided by emotions prevalent within the country, which, by the way, are very pro-Israel. However, the fact is that India's Israel-Palestine policy is redundant. It is outdated and out of touch with reality. Unfortunately, India has not been able to give up on the Nehruvian outlook of the Israel-Palestine conflict, which, simply put, was overwhelmingly supportive of the quote-unquote Palestinian cause. On Sunday, India's UN permanent representative issued a statement regarding the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas. This statement, importantly, was issued by India at a meeting of the United Nations Security Council convened to discuss the clashes between Israel and Hamas terrorists. The statement by India said, "The indiscriminate rocket firings from Gaza targeting the civilian population in Israel, which we condemn, and the retaliatory strikes into Gaza have caused immense suffering and resulted in deaths, including women and children." And here's the most appalling part. India did not stop there. In fact, it went on to support a two-state solution for Israel and Palestine to resolve their dispute. India's representative during the UNSC meeting said, "In conclusion, I reiterate India's support to the just Palestinian cause and its unwavering commitment to the two-state solution." These words of absolute surrender to the Palestinian cause are sickeningly reminiscent of the Congress era. The Congress governments, for petty political gains, chose to support Palestine as that won them the votes of India's Muslims. Till date, Palestine remains an emotive issue for the Indian Muslim community. However, the Congress party is not in power in New Delhi anymore. Rather, the BJP is. The one party which was expected to reverse India's Palestine policy and realign it with changing geopolitical dynamics is in fact continuing with the same policy. As it turns out, Palestine is not half as committed to the much-touted two-state solution as India seems to be. It is not surprising, therefore, that Palestine has rejected proposals for ending the conflict via such a solution, a whopping 5 times. Yet India stands committed to the two-state solution. The Indian government must rethink and recalibrate its stand on the Israel-Palestine conflict immediately. Else, with the slow pace of this policy transition, we could end up alienating one of our most trusted allies, friends, and partners. PM Modi was the first Indian Prime Minister to set foot in Israel, and this was seen as a move to improve ties with our natural ally. But the transition towards a pro-Israel policy has been astoundingly slow, and the diplomatic language used is outrageously reminiscent of the UPA-era policy, and given the geopolitical dynamics today, this should not have been the case. Israel has been more than a strategic partner and friend of India. It has been a nation which has always risen to the occasion when India faced a crisis. It never shied away from supporting India and backing us. Back in 1999, during the Kargil War, Israel had provided laser-guided missiles for the Mirage 2000H fighters for the Indian Air Force. It was able to win the air war due to Israeli help and provide crucial air support to its ground troops. Last year, as tensions between India and China surged, Israel supplied India with in-service air defense systems. On all occasions when India has needed help and support, Israel has always stood by us. Therefore, when India failed to voice its support for Israel publicly in the face of the Jewish nation facing indiscriminate offensives from Hamas, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu too did not have any reason to include India among the 25 nations he thanked on Twitter for their support. While Arab nations have begun seeing sense and started abandoning the Free Palestine bandwagon, why India cannot do the same remains incomprehensible. The primary argument of those who defend India's stand on Palestine is that New Delhi cannot afford to antagonize the Arab world. Well, the Arab world has itself watered down its support to the Palestinian cause, and many Gulf nations have even signed peace accords with Israel. Surely now would be the time for India to radically rethink its policy on the matter as well. India and Israel both suffer from the menace of cross-border terrorism, Islamism, and also have a rather hostile neighborhood. The need of the hour is for India to stand by Israel in the face of attacks from Hamas.